In the grand tapestry of Westeros, the threads of destiny are as fragile as a spider's web, each choice a spark that can ignite an inferno or extinguish a dynasty. Among these threads, none is as dark and elusive as that of Arya Stark, a girl who once walked the blood-stained halls of Winterfell, a daughter of a great house, reduced to a nameless specter in the Game of Thrones. Her story, marked by vengeance and survival, culminated in a choice that reshaped not just her destiny, but that of all 7 kingdoms. Imagine, if you will, a different turn of events, a reality where Arya Stark embraced her faceless identity not as a fleeting disguise, but as a permanent truth. What if the girl who claimed vengeance for her family never returned to her name, her face, or her home? What if Arya Stark became a faceless man in the truest sense, and her shadow lingered across the lands of Westeros like an untraceable ghost? The tale we know begins with a tragedy. Arya, youngest daughter of Lord Eddard Stark, once a bright-eyed child fascinated by swords and stories, was thrust into chaos by the cruel decapitation of her father at King's Landing. Fleeing into a world of wolves and lions, she learned the art of survival with blood on her hands and vengeance in her heart. Her journey led her to Braavos, to the House of Black and White, a temple of death and transformation, where she trained to be no one, a servant of the many-faced god. But Arya was not like the others who came to the temple seeking absolution or purpose. She carried with her the names of those who wronged her family, etched into her soul like scars. When the time came for Arya to choose between her new identity and her old one, she defied the Faceless Men, reclaimed her name, and returned to Westeros to finish her list. Yet, what if Arya's choice had been different? What if, in the dark waters of Braavos, she had cast away not only her name but her very sense of self? What if the girl who once recited her list each night had found solace in the creed of the Faceless Men, abandoning her Stark lineage to serve death as its faceless avatar? It is here, at this divergence, that our tale begins, a tale of what might have been had Arya Stark chosen to forsake her humanity entirely, becoming an enigma that reshaped the course of Westeros from the shadows. Listen closely, for this is not a story sung by minstrels or recounted in the histories. This is a story that lives only in the whispered imaginings of those who dare to ask, what if Arya Stark became a faceless man permanently? The moment of divergence, the House of Black and White stood silent, its shadow stretching across the canals of Braavos. Arya Stark, battered but resolute, knelt before the kindly man, the weight of her training and choices heavy on her shoulders. The night was like many others, save for the pivotal decision that now lay before her. In the original timeline, Arya rejected her training's ultimate test. She reclaimed Needle, her symbol of identity, and embraced her Stark lineage. But here, in this alternate path, the weight of her family's tragedy and the allure of a life unburdened by identity drove her to a different choice. She laid Needle not beneath a stone, but into the Braavosi waters, surrendering the last vestige of Arya Stark to the tides. With this act, Arya became no one, a servant of the many-faced god. The Faceless Men accepted her completely, their teachings molding her into a perfect weapon of death, silent, untraceable, and without ties to the mortal world. The Stark family's perception. Back in Westeros, rumors swirled about Arya Stark's fate. Her family, clinging to hope, believed her either dead or lost beyond recovery. Sansa Stark, now Lady of Winterfell, bore the burden of leadership without her sister's cunning support. Jon Snow, consumed by his own battles and the looming threat of the Night King, mourned Arya quietly, but found himself unable to act. The absence of Arya Stark left a void in the Stark family. Their enemies saw an opportunity in the weakened unity of Winterfell, while their allies lamented the loss of the fiery girl who had once fought alongside them. A new mission for no one. Arya's transformation into a faceless man marked the beginning of her ascension within the Order. The kindly man, recognizing her exceptional skill, entrusted her with missions of increasing complexity and significance. Her first true assignment as no one was to eliminate a wealthy Braavosi merchant whose exploitation of the poor angered the many-faced god. Arya's success was swift and precise, earning her the Order's trust. She began to rise through their ranks, her exploits stretching far beyond Braavos. Her shadow crossed continents, striking fear into rulers, merchants, and warriors alike. The political ripples across Westeros. Arya's path as a faceless man began to influence the political landscape of Westeros. Unbeknownst to the Seven Kingdoms, the Order of the Many-Faced God became a silent yet significant player in the Game of Thrones. Cersei Lannister. In King's Landing, whispers of a deadly assassin spread through the court. Cersei, now Queen of the Seven Kingdoms, grew paranoid as rumors of faceless killers reached her ears. She hired her own spies to investigate, but found nothing, heightening her fear of an unseen threat. Daenerys Targaryen. In Meereen, Daenerys' advisors debated the ethics of hiring a faceless man to eliminate key enemies. Arya's exploits as a faceless man brought their existence to Daenerys' attention, though she chose not to employ them, for now. The Night King. While Arya's mortal exploits rippled through the living, the dead marched on the north. Without Arya Stark, the Night King's rise faced fewer challenges, leaving Jon Snow and his allies scrambling to find other solutions. Arya's inner conflict. While Arya had abandoned her name, the memories of her family and past life haunted her. Each mission she undertook for the many-faced god brought her closer to forgetting who she once was, yet echoes of Winterfell, her father's voice, her siblings' laughter, her list of names, remained like fading stars in the night sky. Arya's new existence was solitary, and the thrill of success began to give way to the quiet agony of losing herself entirely. Her journey as no one created an Arya Stark, who was both hunter and hunted, detached from her humanity, but not completely free of it. With Arya Stark's decision to remain a faceless man forever, her absence from Westeros causes shockwaves throughout the realm. Her family, still in the throes of battle, no longer has the sharp edge that could turn the tide in their favor. But as the world around her changes, Arya begins to carve out her own path, a path laden with shadow and blood. In the streets of Braavos, Arya embraces her new identity. She is no longer Arya Stark, but rather a servant of the many-faced god. She is known only by the faces she wears and the lives she takes. However, the deeper she delves into her new life, the more the past claws at her. Though the faceless men claim that they can erase all attachments, Arya's Stark blood still courses through her veins, her desire for vengeance on the Lannisters and the phrase igniting her every action. The cold detachment the faceless men seek to instill in their disciples only exacerbates her internal battle between who she was and what she has become. Arya, now a master of the gift, begins accepting contracts with increasing difficulty. Her first task as an official faceless man is a high-profile assassination. A wealthy merchant in Volantis, tied to the political elite of Essos, is her target. She walks the streets of the city, cloaked in the guise of a noblewoman, with nothing but the sharp edge of her blade to guide her. As she takes the merchant's life, a chill runs through her, a reminder that, despite the identity she has shed, the person she was is still present. Every death chips away at her humanity, yet she continues to move forward, learning from each step, refining her craft. But this isn't a simple story of training and success. In this timeline, Arya's path soon intersects with the larger political and military shifts in both Essos and Westeros. The Faceless Men, who once operated from the shadows, have grown in prominence and influence. Their assassins are sought after not only for their deadly skill, but also for their ability to shift the balance of power. Unbeknownst to her, Arya's work has drawn the attention of figures in the Free Cities, as well as the Targaryens in the east. While Daenerys Targaryen's dragons rampage through Essos, Arya's presence becomes a thorn in her side. She is hired by rival factions, those who seek to prevent Daenerys from reaching Westeros. Arya, ever the assassin, sees this as nothing more than a job, but her choices begin to weigh on her as she understands the consequences of her actions. One such mission takes her to a small city on the coast, where she's hired to eliminate an advisor who has been counseling Daenerys. Arya is forced to confront the stark difference between her past self, the girl who sought to protect the Stark legacy, and her present self, the cold-hearted killer who cares for nothing but the mission. In Westeros, the absence of Arya Stark shifts the tides of the War of the Five Kings. Robb Stark's rebellion, already faltering under the weight of the Boltons and Freys, crumbles without Arya's influence. Though Robb still holds a strong claim to the north, the Starks' political position weakens with each passing day. The treachery of the Freys is left unchecked, and they continue their machinations against the Starks, leading to a brutal, blood-soaked end to Robb's campaign. The Red Wedding becomes a massacre without redemption, as the remaining Stark forces are torn apart in the wake of betrayal. With Robb dead, and no Arya to keep the flames of resistance alive, the Boltons tighten their grip on the north. The brutal treatment of the Stark loyalists ignites an underground movement, led by the remnants of House Mormont and other northern families. Their hatred for the Boltons fuels a bloody guerrilla war, one that stretches the Boltons thin and prevents them from fully consolidating power. However, this resistance lacks the key leadership figure. Robb had been a symbol, but without Arya's return, no figurehead rises to unify the North. Meanwhile, the Lannisters find themselves weakened by Arya's disappearance. Without her relentless pursuit of vengeance, Tyrion Lannister continues to wrestle with the consequences of his actions, including the death of his father, Tywin. Tyrion, always caught in the web of his own moral dilemmas, continues to struggle with his identity as a Lannister, a role that has never quite fit him. With no Stark blood to fuel his hatred, he becomes increasingly isolated, yet more cunning. He senses the political vacuum forming in the wake of the Stark absence and begins to manipulate the court of King's Landing with newfound skill. His alliances become as tenuous as they are powerful, leaving him walking a razor-thin line between survival and destruction. Cersei, still in control of King's Landing, continues to rule with an iron fist, yet the shadow of Arya Stark lingers in the back of her mind. The Lannisters had always feared Arya, knowing that the last surviving Stark child had the potential to unravel everything they had worked for. With Arya gone, Cersei feels a strange sense of victory, but this victory is hollow, for the absence of Arya creates an unsettling uncertainty in her reign. She's never quite sure if the fragile peace will hold, or if an unseen enemy will strike when she least expects it. In the south, the rise of Daenerys Targaryen challenges the status quo, and Arya's actions in Essos now have larger implications for the Westerosi throne. Daenerys, upon learning that the Faceless Men have aided her enemies, begins her own covert campaign to thwart them. As her dragons continue to conquer the free cities, Arya is faced with an unexpected question. Should she fight for Daenerys, the would-be queen, or remain loyal to the gods of death who have trained her? She sees Daenerys as a force of nature, a woman who could reshape the world, but she is also the embodiment of a world Arya has long since abandoned. Should Arya become an ally of Daenerys, or will she once again seek the path of vengeance, now with a larger target in sight? This internal conflict weighs heavily on Arya as she navigates the fractured political landscape of both Essos and Westeros. With each death she delivers, Arya is haunted by the choices she must make. She is no longer a child from Winterfell. She is a weapon shaped by the hands of the many-faced god. But as time passes, the lines between her new life and her old life blur. The more she kills, the more she sees the world through the eyes of a killer, and the less she sees herself at all. The world is changing, and Arya Stark, the girl who once sought revenge, is no longer a part of it. Instead, she becomes a force of chaos, a harbinger of death whose choices could determine the future of both Westeros and Essos. And in the end, Arya faces the ultimate question. Who is she, if not the knife in the dark? The storyline continues to unfold, a tale of personal struggle, betrayal, and the price of power. What happens when a Stark embraces a destiny of shadows? And what does it mean for the fate of the Seven Kingdoms, when a Stark no longer seeks revenge, but becomes the instrument of it? The skies over Braavos are thick with an ominous grey, reflecting the storm brewing in Arya Stark's heart. Arya, now a legend in the shadows, has reached the breaking point of her dual existence, an assassin bound to the many-faced god, yet haunted by the ghost of her former self. The Faceless Men have given her the ultimate contract, a task that will seal her place in their history forever. Assassinate Daenerys Targaryen, the mother of dragons. Daenerys, now ruling in Meereen, is preparing to march to Westeros with her unsullied army and 3 fearsome dragons. Her plans to break the wheel of tyranny are well underway, but Arya's contract threatens to unravel it all. Arya infiltrates Daenerys' court, disguised as a humble servant. She studies her target with the precision of a predator, noting every movement, every word. Yet, as she watches Daenerys speak of her vision for a better world, a flicker of doubt creeps into Arya's mind. The girl who once prayed for vengeance wonders if she has now become a weapon wielded by forces more corrupt than those she once sought to destroy. The tension reaches a boiling point one fateful night in the Great Pyramid of Meereen. Arya, cloaked in the guise of a loyal handmaiden, enters Daenerys' chambers. In her hand, she holds a blade laced with poison, a gift from the many-faced god. Daenerys, unaware of the assassin in her midst, stands by the window, gazing out at her dragons as they circle the skies. Arya steps closer, each footfall heavier than the last, her heart pounding with the weight of her decision. But before she can strike, a voice echoes in her mind. It is not the many-faced god, nor is it the faceless whispers of her mentors. It is her father, Ned Stark, speaking the words she heard so many years ago. The man who passes the sentence should swing the sword. Arya freezes. The poison-coated blade trembles in her hand as she realizes the truth. This is not justice. This is not vengeance. This is a cold, calculated murder for gods and masters who care nothing for the lives they extinguish. In that moment of hesitation, Drogon roars from the skies, and Arya knows she has been caught. The door to Daenerys' chamber bursts open, and the unsullied storm in, weapons drawn. Arya, ever the survivor, fights her way out, her assassin's reflexes allowing her to escape through the labyrinthine corridors of the pyramid. But the bond of secrecy she held with the Faceless Men is broken. Her failure to complete the mission is an act of betrayal, and she knows they will come for her. Fleeing into the night, Arya finds herself at a crossroads, both literally and figuratively. She stands at the edge of a port, a ship to Westeros waiting before her. Behind her lies the city of Braavos, the temple of the many-faced god, and the life she has led for years. Before her lies the Seven Kingdoms, a home she no longer recognizes but feels compelled to protect. In the end, Arya chooses Westeros. She boards the ship, knowing that her defiance will bring the wrath of the Faceless Men upon her, but also knowing that she has reclaimed a part of herself that she thought was lost forever. As the ship sets sail, she looks out at the horizon, her mind racing with thoughts of what awaits her. Will she face the wrath of the Lannisters, the Boltons, or the White Walkers? Or will she find a way to redeem herself and reclaim her place in the story of her family? The storm that rages over the narrow sea mirrors the storm within Arya. She has turned her back on the many-faced god, but at what cost? The answer to that question remains unknown as the ship disappears into the fog, leaving Braavos and the life of a faceless man behind. In this climactic turning point, Arya's internal struggle comes to a head. Her choice to defy the Faceless Men and spare Daenerys sets the stage for an even more perilous journey in Westeros, where the Game of Thrones is deadlier than ever, and Arya Stark must navigate a world that may no longer have a place for her. The ship carrying Arya Stark to Westeros docks at a small fog-laden port near the Vale. Arya steps onto familiar soil, though it feels alien under her feet. The winds carry the scents of pine and brine, a stark contrast to the perfumes of Braavos. As she looks up at the looming mountains of the Vale, a fleeting memory of her journey as a wolf of the north surfaces, filling her with a bittersweet mix of nostalgia and uncertainty. In the days that follow, Arya travels in disguise, her faceless man skills keeping her unseen and unheard. She avoids the main roads, aware that her defiance of the many-faced god has painted a target on her back. The Faceless Men, silent and unrelenting, are now hunting their own. Arya knows they will come for her, but she also knows she must continue moving forward. Word of Arya Stark's return trickles through the whispers of the common folk, but no one dares confirm it. To most of the realm, Arya Stark is either dead or a forgotten ghost of the Stark legacy. Only the North still holds the weight of her name. She decides to journey to Winterfell, the only place that still feels like home. As Arya approaches the gates of her ancestral home, her heart pounds with anticipation and dread. The banners of House Stark fly high, a testament to Jon Snow's reclaiming of the North. But as she enters the Great Hall, the sight that greets her is both joyous and sobering. Sansa sits on the Lord's chair, regal and commanding, her trials in King's Landing shaping her into a true leader. Jon stands beside her, the weight of the Night King's threat evident in his posture. Arya's return is met with shock, tears, and cautious celebration. Yet, her return is not without tension. Sansa, ever practical, questions Arya's loyalty after years away. Jon, torn between his love for his sister and his growing sense of responsibility as king in the North, tries to mediate. Arya, weary from her journey and her inner turmoil, struggles to explain the complexity of her time with the Faceless Men. She reveals nothing of her betrayal of the many-faced god or the contract on Daenerys, choosing instead to keep those secrets buried deep within her. As the family reunites, Arya finds herself wrestling with a new purpose. She is no longer the vengeful girl who once dreamed of crossing names off her list. The Faceless Men have taken that part of her, but in sparing Daenerys, she reclaimed something far more valuable, her humanity. But the shadows of her past are never far behind. One night, as she sits by the Godswood, a familiar figure emerges from the darkness. A faceless man, cloaked and unrecognizable, delivers a simple message. The many-faced god does not forget. Arya, armed only with her dagger, braces for a fight, but the figure disappears as quickly as he arrived. It is a warning and a promise. The story concludes with Arya standing at the edge of Winterfell's walls, gazing out into the snow-covered wilderness of the north. The stars above seem closer here, as if the old gods are watching her. She reflects on the choices she has made and the battles yet to come. Arya Stark is no longer a girl chasing vengeance, nor a servant of faceless gods. She is something new, something untamed, a lone wolf in a world of lions, dragons, and shadows. As the narrator's voice returns, the tale ends with a thought-provoking question. In choosing to defy death itself, has Arya Stark set herself free, or has she only traded one chain for another? And as winter tightens its grip on Westeros, what role will she play in the battles to come? The tale of Arya Stark as a permanent faceless man has left its indelible mark on the world of Westeros. Her choice to reject the many-faced god and reclaim her identity as Arya Stark reshaped not only her destiny, but also the lives of those around her. The skills she learned as a faceless man gave her the power to alter the course of events, but they also left her with enemies lurking in the shadows. In this alternate reality, the Stark family is reunited, yet the scars of their individual journeys linger. Arya's defiance has brought hope and danger in equal measure, as her return strengthens the North, but introduces a new, unpredictable threat. The Faceless Men, an organization that thrives on neutrality and anonymity, now have a vendetta against one of their own. Meanwhile, Daenerys Targaryen, spared from assassination, continues her march toward Westeros, unaware of how close she came to death. The screen fades to the sigil of House Stark against a white backdrop, the words, "The North remembers," etched below, leaving viewers with a haunting sense of anticipation and wonder.